Hey there, hello. This is Vast Challenge Mini Challenge Cell Phone Call. In this mini challenge, I'm given a data set of 400 unique IDs and about 9,340 phone calls. And the first problem I'm trying to solve is to identify Catalano and Verdo's social network. For the background info, this is a data about cell phone records for a social movement happening on the island, and the data is synthetic. And in order to attempt to solve this problem, I constructed a social network graph over here we could see. And by looking at this social network graph, I could see that the central person is ID 200. We interested in ID 200 because he is believed to be Ferdinando Catalano, and we have a medium confidence that Catalano is ID 200. And in this graph, the size of the circle denotes the frequency of phone calls ID 200 interact with these people in his social network over the course of 10 days, not just over one day period. And there are 6 circles in color in this network, so ID 200's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, ID 200 mainly interact with ID 1, ID 2, ID 5, ID 97, ID 137, and ID 3. And ID 5 has the most phone call with Catalano, and we believe that he communicate with his brother Esteban the most, so Esteban must be ID 5. And ID 5 and ID 1 has the biggest social circle outside of ID 200 circles, so I suspect that ID 1 is Verdo because he coordinate high level of social movement in the island. And to go over here, this graph is a simpler version of this graph. It only have one layer of social network between 200 and his acquaintances. In this graph, when we hover on the nodes, we could see durations of phone calls, date time, and cell tower. For this graph depicts the phone calls for the last phone call 200 has with each person in his social network. So each phone call could happen in different days. But in this graph, the edge has information. Not like in this graph, the edge doesn't have any information. But in this graph, we could see that the longer the edge, the furthest northwest the cell tower for the call originated from was. So for when ID 200 conduct the phone call with ID 5, which is his brother, the phone was originated from cell tower 30, which is the furthest northwest of the island. Meanwhile, when he has a phone call with number ID 97, the call is much closer to the southeast of the island. And over here, this graph denotes the degree of centrality, which degree of centrality simply means the number of edges coming from a node. So people with the highest number of edges conducts the most number of phone call with the most people in the network. So we could define significance by the number of phone calls they have with the number of people in its networks. So right here, we could see that there are 3 groups that has the highest degree of centrality. And if we use a Wozoom tool to closer, we could see that this is Esteban ID 5 with ID 306 right next to him. And the second group is ID 0, ID 1, and with ID 309. And this third group is a bit smaller, is ID 2, ID 397, and ID 61. And we could see ID 0 over here. And among these nodes, ID 1 has the highest degree of centrality. We have visited ID 1 in this graph, and I suspect this to be Verdo because he coordinates with high level of activities. And so we could look closely more in this graph, and we could identify ID 0, who is significant in the social network because he communicates with all the significant people in Catalano social network. And for this graph, we could switch the layout, and for this layout, we could see a much density of greens over this area, denoting that the highest level of frequency happening over these individuals. So to characterize the changes in social network for over the period of 10 days, I built this social network graph. And if you slide the slider, we could see the changes. Now it's coming back to day 1. Okay, if I slide it all the way to day 10, we could see the changes happening slowly. The communication is getting pretty high over the course of day 1 to day 7. And we notice the change happening here. There was no interaction between ID 200 and any others people via cell phone. And then we come back over here, and then there is activities of cell phone again, but at this time ID 200 is communicating with people who he used to not communicate to. So see, these group of people are way different. This unusual activities signifies the fact that he could change his cell phone number, and now there's a new owner of his old cell phone, because this might coordinate high with a crime activities or a very significant events that has happened during the social movement. For this graph, we could see the connection instantly between individuals, nodes, and IDs. However, we don't see how long the duration of phone calls was, and we don't know how many times that ID 200 has talked to a particular person over the course of a day. So I built an interactive graphs of simple line charts, and this line charts could tell you instantly that the peak of the duration is with his brother Esteban, and when you slide over the course of 10 days, we could see the activity changes, and once again there was no activity in day 8, and then new people showing up on day 9, and only one person talking to ID 200 on day 10, which is pretty unusual. For this graph, we could enable and disable the date time label, and so we could see here the phone call happened at 6 p.m. and this highest level of activity happened at 3 p.m. and 10 a.m. and before the disappearance of the cell phone on day 8, we could see that the highest activities, the highest duration call is with ID 3 at 3 p.m. and this is at 4 p.m. and on day 5 is at 7 p.m. and on day 4 is at 9 a.m. and then once again with his brother 1 p.m. and on day 3 is at 5 p.m. and day 2 is at 4 a.m. which is very unusual, and it's 3 a.m. and there's a 3 p.m. phone call with the high duration, and this one you could see that it's conducted at 9 a.m. So overall, Catalano conducted phone calls around 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. late afternoon before his cell phone signal disappearance on day 8. And so that concludes my interactive visualization for this problem. Thanks.